Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the PARQA PulseCast. I'm Travis Webb, VP of Sales at PARQA, and your host for today's episode. I'm excited to be joined today by Brendan Robinson, founder and CEO of Broad Madison Advisory, Travis Arnold, founder and CEO of Boostie, and Jared Hummel, founder and co-CEO of PARQA. In today's episode, we're going to cover technology, AI, automation. We're going to cover some of the latest announcements in the industry with some new tools and tech. We're going to talk about how our three organizations complement each other and how we assist customers, whether it's implementing the latest tools or maybe just getting started on your journey with automation or implementing the latest tools in digital transformation. With that, let's meet our guest and get started. Brendan, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background in your company.
Yeah, Brendan Robinson, founder and CEO of Broad Madison. Probably the new guys on the block says we're only 6 months old, but I spent 15 years at Bullhorn in various roles and just started this firm back in January of this year. And we really focus on taking the customer success function and bringing it in-house to staffing and recruiting agencies, which is a bit kind of a bucking the traditional model of CS being a vendor-led function. We're trying to bring it in-house and actually differentiate ourselves by really helping these customers maximize the technology that they've purchased.
Awesome. Good stuff. New guy from the Broad Madison sense, but you've been in the industry for a long time, so
Right.
not really the new guy. Travis, let's go with you. Great name, by the way. Tell us a little bit about your background.
Ditto. All the best dudes named Travis. My name's Travis Arnold. I've been in staffing tech since 2007. Few different ATSs, kind of been around the block for a while. Currently CEO and co-founder of Boostie. We're a talent marketing platform. Try to help people lower their dependency on job boards, but also create just a kick-ass candidate experience. Really cool applies. Blast spam and bot applicants that come through into the ATS. All the things that make Brendan's life really hard and challenging and all his customers. We try to ease that at the top of the funnel. Prior to Boostie, founded a tool called Herefish. It's now called Bullhorn Automation. Kind of automated, I think, 3.5 billion things this past year. So it's pretty cool to see how that's matured and grown. And then we recently launched the Boostie Advisory, which is an automation-only advisory service for people that use Bullhorn Automation and come to us asking us if we can help them. So that's kind of where we are currently, kind of with our different sides of the business.
Awesome, and exciting that you have launched that. I know in our conversations, you've been asked about it for many years, so finally jumping on board with that.
Finally did it. Finally pulled the Band-Aid off.
That's great. All right, and Jared.
Yeah, Jared Hummel, founder and co-CEO of PARQA. PARQA started actually within a staffing and recruiting firm that I was the CFO of, and I can attest to when Travis was in the early days in a basement, probably we were looking at automation tools because as a CFO, I couldn't understand why this industry wasn't more efficient with its ad spend and its recruiter efficiency. So we took PARQA from more of a traditional marketing company to a Salesforce consulting and implementation company over the last 18 months, really around that same premise that the candidate experience isn't great. Recruiters are really inefficient, and feeling that this was a technology that could really help amplify that, not to use play on words, but to really amplify that in a market that's ripe for disruption. So, appreciate being here and appreciate having Travis and Brendan. It's two people that I've followed for a long time, so it's cool to have it come full circle.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as we kick off here, I know that the three of you guys had a chance to get together in Boston a few weeks back. I unfortunately did not make that one, but still hearing a lot of good things about it and things that happened. But I just look at the industry as a whole, right? I've been in it 20 plus years. I got into it as a recruiter working with my older brother. We actually wrote an ATS system together. He made me write some of the first use cases in UML and RUP. So, I got in that side, but worked for two of the biggest in the world. And I just look back and I think from the technology journey, I've said this on a few other podcasts, but, up until kind of that COVID period where everybody got forced to go home and you actually had to really, really leverage technology, right? It's kind of just creeping along. Jared and I, when I got to PARQA, digital marketing, that we joke around, our COO Julie said, she was doing more complicated marketing in 1995 for American Airlines than anything she saw in staffing and recruiting, from being here, right? So it's just like, for the longest time, it was the same conversation over and over. And then now it's just like breakneck speed of what's next? What's next? Here's this tool. You got to have this, but you also have to have this. So, as we look in like the marketplace and we look at all these different tools, and it's just, there's a lot of it out there, but I feel like there's some common pitfalls that happen, right? Like we almost know from the beginning, hey, this company X is going to succeed. They got it. They figured it out. Company Y is going to struggle because they're kind of all over the place. So let's start out. People kind of normally put this at the end, but I want to talk about in the beginning. Let's talk about common pitfalls that we see when it comes to, let's start with the actual ATS system, Brendan. So let's start with you on this. And when you think of overall ATS, like a bullhorn, being there for 10 years, watching the SI partners, watching the implementations, like what were some of those common pitfalls that you would identify up front that you saw that were repeatable with customers?
Number one, recreating their old system in their new system.
Yep.
And forgetting why they're buying something in the first place. So, you buy this, ATS XYZ, and you use it for a decade, build up all this internal collateral for reasons why you had to do something, whether you signed to be a customer that had to build in a custom workflow to satisfy the customer's billing needs, which in staffing never happens, right? That's like the number one rule that always happens. And it creates this pain over time, and the pain leads into let's evaluate, and we evaluate, and it becomes this great. All the use cases we want to port over into the new technology are our old processes. So there's nothing that's actually left in terms of how do we streamline, get better, hack away at some of the overgrowth that we've experienced over the last 5, 10, 15 years. It's I'm familiar with this, therefore I want to be familiar with that. And the way I'm familiar with that is everything is the same. So for us internally at Broad Madison, one of the things we've done in terms of how we select technology when it comes to process, when it comes to the overall tech itself, whatever technology we buy, our process is going to be dictated by what their system is capable of. If our process doesn't fit in their system, we change our process. And I wish more firms did this going forward because it has a lot of downstream implications. Customizations are really hard to support. When they break in the future, you're going to have a degraded support experience, a degraded customer success experience because you've built a product that nobody knows the ins and outs like you do. So you're going to be relying on people that need to get up to speed. So for us, the more you can stay in the box, the more you can accept what the parameters of that technology are. I think the smoother experience you'll have over the life cycle of your contract with fill in the blank technology.
Yeah, and I can tell you, I lived that real world. I worked as an end user at the time for a large bullhorn implementation, and I just remember our operations team set it up, and being in, I was part of the UAT team, and sitting in there, and it was like everything was a customization. I'm like, we're literally rebuilding the system we had built on our own. Like, why are we doing this? So I have seen that. Jared, how about you? Some of the things you've seen over your time.
Yeah, I think from a pitfall side of it, as every technology company does, like they sell you the end like shiny object that they want it to become. But I feel like most staffing companies are impatient or unrealistic in their idea that like you get up and running and then it's a process to get to great, and not only get to great, but just the idea that your technology is part of your efficiency, is a part of your revenue growth. And like the idea that it, we don't want to pay $2,000 for maintenance, nonetheless pay $5,000 to get ahead is, I think, why all three of us are here. And the common synergy is like, oh, I bought bullhorn automation. Like it should just work. Well, no, like you have to understand who your recruiter is. You have to understand who your candidate is. And if you're talking less about the automation side and more about the ATS and what Brendan does, I think, that's why he founded Broad Madison was, hey, you have bullhorn, but like, how do we use it better? Not just like, how do you pay for a bucket of hours and keep the lights on, but having the experience that him and his team have is like, I've seen all of it. Here's how to do it well. Like, to me, that should be an obvious, whether that's PARQA, Broad Madison, Boostie, or other vendors. Like, taking that idea that, PARQA is really focused on being Salesforce implementation, but like we don't want to be done when the implementation's done. Like that is almost a necessary evil. Like we want to be the consultant that walks through the journey with you to understand how to use AI, understand how to use the product, understand how to use automation. That's what's actually going to drive business value. And so I hope and I think that's changing a little bit based on what these two guys are doing and what Park is trying to do.
Yeah, and I think everybody looks at go live as the destination, right? When that's like the midpoint in the journey. It's not the end. It's actually Jared and I were talking earlier this week. Would have been yesterday because it's only Tuesday as we record here. But we were talking about how it's funny, like when an ATS system gets implemented, whoever's like the one that adopts it the most, whether it's a recruiter or a salesperson, ends up being like the default admin and go-to person for it, right? Whereas in any other large corporate organization, if you're going to spend this much money on a system that literally drives your business, there's at least one specialist or certified person, or there's a whole team of them that run it. But in our industry, it seems to be that one person's like, they actually buy in and be like, all right, I'm all in, I'm going to use it. And next thing you know, they're the super user and they're answering the questions. And
that's it.
Just interesting.
We've seen that a ton. It's just like people, right. It's a recruiter in between calls the candidates, like, oh, hey, can you help me like format this thing over here? And it's like, what?
Yeah.
Don't you know how to do this? It's like base level stuff.
Yeah, it happens a lot.
Yeah.
Well, Travis, let's talk from your side, right? We've talked about the overall ATS, but let's talk automation for a minute. Some of the pitfalls you see there when it comes to automation and engagement.
Yeah, I think going back in time, 2014, we're sitting around like Jason Heilman and I when we're having a beer talking about this. We attack it from the approach of candidate engagement, right? It sucks so bad. Like you apply to a job, you never hear anything. You go in the black hole. All these like little use cases. Like we wanted to make that easy for folks in a world where you don't necessarily, the first language isn't automation, and sometimes it's not even technology, right? It's talking to people. So how do we do that? Early on, we kept it simple. And as the product matured and got like, hey, we're an automation platform that can do anything. Brendan, you can attest to how we grew. Like we worked with you early in the process with Herefish. But as far as the pitfalls go, it's like the biggest thing is people go in like, I'm going to do it all today. Like today, I'm going to build all this stuff. And it's the absolute wrong approach. You have to kind of wade into the water here. And it's what are those little use cases we can pick off and do simply and the easiest way possible. Like I think there's this thought that to automate something that has to be complicated. And my completely like, no, that's not the case. I always tell people it's like, what's the simplest thing you can do to make it work? And if that's sending an email after someone applies, then sending an email after someone applies. You don't need to build all this nonsense and scoring and all this mechanism in place if you're just trying to check that box to get started. And that's to me where I look at the adoption. Bullhorn sold 3,500 licenses, if not more, of Bullhorn automation. And it's like, you look at the adoption, it's like, we'll talk to people that have had it since the beginning. Like they were customers of Herefish before we were acquired. And it's like, they're doing the stuff that we told them to do early on, and then they haven't matured out of that. It's like, okay, like you've done the simple stuff. Let's get a little bit deeper into the weeds. To everybody on the call, it's like, you guys have all seen how messy the ATS can be. So I think automation is a great connective tissue between all those systems to make sure everything is like where it needs to be, because that informs all the downstream stuff. It informs pay and bill, it informs outbound communications, status changes, all that stuff from a data cleanliness standpoint. All that matters. But automation wise, it can get, I think people want to do it all at once versus let's just do it on the whiteboard. Let's take 5 use cases. How do we build those and then put those into play in the next 2 weeks? And then let's see how that works. Let's test and assess it. And then let's move on to the next 5 things. I think that it becomes a little bit overwhelming, and then that leads to adoption kind of stalling and stopping. And then you have people, we all know staffing can be a little bit transient, so people move in and out, and then your expert for automation that wasn't an admin is now gone, so they're off the reservation and they're doing something else. So yeah, trying to do too much too quick, I think, is probably the biggest thing I see that people fall down on.
Yeah. Yeah, and we see that same thing too, and then it's interesting with the we talk about like the breakneck speed of stuff coming through, right? Like with AI, it's AI. We're like, oh, I'm using AI, and then you look back and someone's like, no, you're just starting to use automation. You're not even
there you go.
You're even touching AI. Like, you're just starting to get into that, and we talk about experience. Prior to our kind of shift in direction here these last 18 months, I mean, that was a lot of what we did. We did, experience design, right? And so we would walk customers through that journey. Like, what does it look like for your candidate? And it's a great exercise. If you mentioned a whiteboard, if you've never done it, like walk them through that whole process. Like, what is it like to apply? Go apply at your own company. See what it's like. You understand your own experience, right? Like, it's not good a lot of the time. So, I think as we talk about like how we optimize automation for that when it comes to experience, because let's face it, it is becoming less human for a lot of the task. And some people look as a negative. I don't. I think there's a lot of mundane tasks that take up a lot of time that people with brain power shouldn't be doing, right? If you can automate it. But, Brendan, anything you see from your end, like companies that are really kind of optimizing automation when it comes to candidate engagement or that outreach?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I would say if you're not using automation well, you're never going to be able to use AI well. I think when they going back to the early Hairfish days, it was really built around the external engagement with these candidates. But the reality is now that tool is going to be used for looking inwards in terms of keeping data clean, which is actually going to bring out the true power of AI. So I think there's some inextricable link between the two of them, where if you're not really embracing automation, that's kind of step 0.5 before even step 1 of thinking about going the AI route. And from an optimization standpoint, and what we've seen previously, I think it's ironic what you're talking, Travis, about experience. I'm actually glad that the entire candidate experience is becoming quote unquote less human, because I think what's happening here is there's an extrapolation of what firms do as their best case scenario, and they act like that happens all the time. There's a good quote at Engage. It's like, we don't want to necessarily embrace the robots calling our people. And it's like, the reality is you're calling like 1% of the people that actually apply to you, and the other 99% hear jack. So maybe it's not the worst thing in the world. I think pivoting to stop looking at what I do best and saying, my one candidate, my best recruiter had a great outreach to this one person who was one of 1,000 people in a job. What if you look at a baseline? Instead of raising the ceiling, talk about raising the floor? What if simply everybody got a response?
Sure.
That should be table stakes. Not hard to do. But in reality, it's not happening that often at all. So just make sure that they are getting something that actually says like, hey, we are ABC Staffing Company. We care. Thank you for your submission. Very easy automation to build. Goes a very long way, especially in today's job market where people feeling ghosted. I mean, I saw Travis, you posted about the other day with the rise of the auto application from bots. It's just to hear that I got you, I acknowledge it, is great. Like I would go to a deli and take a ticket and then not be acknowledged at all. I'd be like, what the hell is going? This deli sucks. Right? That's what's happening here, though. It's people are taking a ticket, and you hope that they're like in the vicinity of calling your ticket. And it's such an easy thing to do that isn't happening ubiquitously, and I think it's the lowest hanging fruit out there that will differentiate folks from others.
And that's the one, I think, again, going back to like, what are the pitfalls? Like, people aren't even doing that. Like, put yourself in the candidate seat, the time, effort, and energy that goes into applying. And people might argue, well, now it's all AI applications. Like, sure, but they still took time, effort, and energy to apply to sit those 30 jobs, whatever they did. Let's get a little bit of an autoresponder there. And that's to Brendan's point, that's one of the easiest things you can set up right away. I think another thing you brought up, like another thing I've seen with just automation, the maturity of it, people are really good. People that embraced it, did the outbound kind of communication automation there. The people that are really embracing it now are doing that internal robotic process automation internally. It's making sure fields are updated, making sure data is in the right spot for, again, that future stuff. And all those things you have to like build to that. You can't just go straight in and like, I'm going to do all this stuff today. I think it really, you see the adoption and the effectiveness get better as they kind of do it in their world, in their terms, because what works for company A may not be the best scenario for company B. And it's you have to do it yourself. I don't think we're not in a point yet where AI is going to go and do it for you. You still have to kind of dive in and like understand your business and the touch points that occur, and how do we maximize those interactions either externally or internally, so we're in a better spot from an ATS standpoint.
100%. There's even a step before that. I think when I've seen the real firms that are optimizing the best are willing to. This is a quote that I got Matt Fisher at Bullhorn beaten to my head when I worked for him. Inspect what you expect.
Yep.
Mhm.
And are you even calling your firm from a random number to see what the experience is like for average Joe person applying? Like, you all think it's good. Is it good? I don't know. Like, it's going to suck when you realize, man, it's not that easy to get in touch with my people when I am just an average person. So it's like, the first step in a weight loss journey is stepping on the scale. It's pressing. That's what you have to do, right? It's figuring that out.
Yeah.
That step is often skipped. They don't want to acknowledge that my process might be broken.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I mean, one of my biggest like faux pas in this industry is everyone says like, well, we can't use automation because we got to have white glove service. And I'm like, what the F? Like, white glove to your 20 people that you have on billing? Like, what about the other 5,000 that applied this month? And I think it's interesting of like taking a look at yourself, because Julie Halderson, one of our partners at PARQA, like did a kind of overarching analysis for Bullhorn and one of Bullhorn's clients and Salesforce, and went out and presented. But she actually looked at like Amazon and Target and like some of these big brands that have really good consumer user interface, and was like, well, are they carrying that over to the actual hiring process? Because it is very similar. And some were further ahead than others, obviously, but like there was still gaps of like Amazon does Amazon well, but like they don't necessarily do their hiring process the same as their user experience for their customers. And so I think that's a really interesting, having just watched Julie go through that, of like the technology is there to do it the Amazon way, but
Totally,
they're not. So
yeah, I mean, not to hijack that, but like, when we were building Boostie, like it came because the application processes suck so bad for candidates that are applying to jobs. It's like, it sucks. It's like you're asking for either too little information, which doesn't give my recruiter anything, like it tells them nothing, or you're asking too much. And so then you have like this ridiculous conversion rate on your application form. So, our kind of spirit animal at Boostie is the Shopify type of thing. Like we want to be e-com. E-com is the most optimized experience we all on this call and everybody listening to this call has. When you check out somewhere, if it sucks, you're out. You've abandoned that cart and you're never coming back. But when you use like a shop.pay or you use an Amazon, it's like, oh, I clicked this, I put this in the cart, they targeted me, like I bought this thing I didn't really need, now I'm moving on. You can apply that same kind of methodology to an applicant. And then also on the back end, not only make it really awesome for the applicant, get a little bit of information where we're actually assessing fit and getting some skills-based questions answered. But for the recruiter, now they can say, okay, here's all my folks that have applied to this role. Oh, here's the fit based on what we know about them and what we have in this job description. Also, we've blasted all the fake applicants and the bots that come through. And that's a whole other talk track. I know everybody on this call, I post about it a lot because it's freaking ridiculous that 25 to up to 60% of your applicants can just be fake, depending on the source. Like if you're using one of the big boards and that direct apply link, you're looking at 30% off the top are just fake, and they happen. Those applicants, we see them come through, and they happen within 20 minutes. You've got 500 applicants in some cases. So it's that kind of stuff. It's like, how do we like apply these? For some reason, 10 years ago or 20 years ago, 30 years ago, somebody decided, hey, the applicant and the candidate are different consumers than you and I. Like they're just different. It's like, well, they're not. We all buy the same shit. We do the same stuff. Why would we want to make them jump through a bad hoop? To your point, where the application process for an Amazon is very different than their process as a consumer, that's kind of silly. Like, why wouldn't it be awesome? And like Brendan, you talked about like that white glove service, like automation ensures that. AI can ensure that in a world where we're waiting for a human to kind of do the best practices that we know they're really not going to do. So there's a whole big world that I think we're at this inflection point where we can't just keep doing the same stuff. We have to do it a little different. Our applicants and our candidates expect a little bit more. I mean, we order DoorDash and you get an update every step of the way. But when you apply to a job, you're like, you might never hear anything. And so then you're in this, like, did I do something wrong? Is it what I said? And then it's just nonsense. And we live in an era where all of those problems are solvable. Yet, again, adoption's low. People don't implement them. There's some some fear that comes into play. Just stuff that we've all seen here on this call, 30 years plus of happening. So it's kind of wild.
Well, you also, I have, not that I want to give Amazon any excuses, but they have an excuse in the sense that there's a bifurcation between what they're selling and what their goal is versus creating an awesome hiring experience, right? At the end of the day, they're making it easy to consume their product. Buy now buttons, go get your thing, we'll track it, the whole works. They don't need to worry about the customer experience, the applicant experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big company. They're going to attract people regardless, whatever they put into that. What I don't understand is when your product is literally selling the experience of being onboarded, how can letting anything less than a white glove service be acceptable? Mm-hmm. Right? Whether it's even in the LI space that people say it's a volume game. I'm hiring a bunch of people. Like, it's the easiest for them, right? Like these are non-technical people. Because you the name of the game is acquire a customer, acquire a candidate, and then make them a repeat candidate, right?
Yep.
Keep cycling the people, keep building them out, all that good stuff. So the lack of investment of time into the top of the funnel experience is wild to me overall.
Yep.
No. Yeah, and I was just going to say too, when we talk about automation, it was kind of brought up, but you mentioned the job boards, and then think about just the current database, right? The cost of, Brendan, what you just said, it's like, hey, you want to acquire them, you want to place them, you want to reuse them in additional positions for additional customers. Yet most companies, when you go back and look, they'll spend hundreds or thousands of dollars to get the same customer that's already in their database, or same candidate that's already in their database 6 times, because they don't, in my opinion, they don't use automation to mine their own database, right? Or engage their entire, like, I always kind of chuckle when everybody talks about like talent pools. I'm like, why doesn't every staffing vendor use talent pools? Why would you not group people by skills, engage them by skills, engage them by the opportunity? Like, that is the ultimate way to leverage the database that you've already paid for and build out the experience and those journeys of making sure that you're not wasting money. And we all know these job boards, between consolidation, the prices are going up, LinkedIn's going, like, it's just, that cost to go out there and do that is one of the biggest expenses in most agencies, right? And it's like, but nobody addresses it. It's still that same, we talk about it, like, that's the interesting thing about this industry is some of the things we talk about in 2025 were the same things we talked about in 2004 when I got into the business, right? Like, there's a lot of same questions. Well, hey, why do we do this way? It's like, well, it's always been done. It's 21 years later, new technology, but it's still the same question. So,
I mean, 07. So back in Sendouts days, people were like, oh man, these job boards. I'm like, they're only like 10 years old at this point. Indeed was like 2 years old. Like, it wasn't like there's this super mature, long-term industry here. They were just kind of like done with it. But here we are, 17, 18 years later, and we're still having the same conversations. It's just kind of wild. And it's wild that you saw Career Builder and Monster merge, and then, they put a bullet in its head, for lack of a better phrase. It's like, wow, I would have guessed that 15 years ago, but no freaking chance that that's going to happen. These are 2 behemoths, billion-dollar companies, like, going crazy, but here we are. And I think as a marketer, I can't imagine having a database full of 1 million people, say that, you have 10 recruiters, you have 1 million people in your ATS, basically. And so, like, holy shit, that's a lot of people. Like, why aren't we should talk to every one of those people all the time, get the people out that don't make sense. But at a recruiting shop, it's like, oh, let's keep rebuying them. Let's keep pulling them in. Let's keep sourcing. We don't trust the data inside of our ATS to use. People talk about talent pools. They've talked about that for 20 years. There's no way to visualize it. Super hard. It's like these little problems that just we keep talking about them every 5 years. I feel in a different way, but they're like nobody's really addressing it. I think for us, it's like let's try to address it. Let's try to visualize the talent pool so you can take action on it. And I think that it goes back to we just keep on this treadmill of let's just keep rebuying candidates. Let's keep doing the same stuff we've always done. Let's not try anything new. Let's not leverage the assets that we have. I mean, you think of the dollars spent. To your point, Travis, like it's an operational expense. They don't even put marketing they don't put job board spend as a marketing expense, which it 100% should be. It's been so long. They've done it for so long. It's now like, well, it's just part of what we do. It's just part of our OpEx. And it's like, that's crazy to me. Then you just don't tie any metrics to it. You don't tie any performance to it. You just know you got a lot of candidates and you hired a couple people and then you moved on. And that's what we get into. And it's just kind of wild.
I think it's quick monster story. I was fortunate enough to go to the Super Bowl. I want to say it was 2009. It was Steelers and Cardinals in Tampa. Monster was the sponsor of the halftime show. It was Bruce Springsteen. And they gave you a seat cushion. And I found this the other day. I was doing some cleaning over the weekend. I have a gold Monster coin from the Super Bowl.
Yes.
That I went to from when they sponsored it. So I chuckled when I came across it the other day. I was like, wow, what's transpired over these last several years. Jared, it looked like you wanted to hop in there.
Yeah, I was just gonna not to take over as being host, but I'm a decade plus behind you guys in this journey in staffing. So my question, because I feel like part of why we got this specific podcast together was around the launch of Amplify and kind of the buzz coming out of Engage. And for the 4 years I've been at Engage, it was shortly after the HereFist acquisition, and there was some buzz, and last year there was some buzz about Copilot, but this year it was we got a call from Bullhorn the next day being everyone's bought into this, we need support, da da da. Do you have any faith, and if you do have faith that it is changing now, what do you believe are the root causes that are going to do that, and how will Amplify be a part of that?
Brendan, you want to?
Oh, good.
Okay.
Take the lead. I'll follow.
I've got I might have a little bit different line of sight into this, but I think that I look at, I'll back up. Automation, you have to have a solid foundation, have your head around it in a point where oh, we're okay with something being out of our hands, right? I think that's the first, I have to give up a little bit of control because this robot's going to do it all the time, and it's actually going to do it probably a little bit better. You have to get to that point first, as a maturity level as a company. The next level is, okay, now we're going to really make decisions. And I don't know if we're there yet. I do think there's some of the things we saw with Amplify makes sense. I'm a big fan of no prompts. We shouldn't have to have a prompt. We should have an outcome. And I liked a little bit what I saw there with hey, there's a little bit more outcome based stuff here. I do think there's the obvious easy wins. And again, I'll come from a HereFish automation standpoint. The Amplify outreach, that was in our line of sight, desk level automation at HereFish early on. We were kind of, how are we going to build this? How are we going to get this to a recruiter or a salesperson at their desk level so they can run their own little automations and not the corporate wide automations of HereFish. And so I look at, that's really what was the most interesting to me, because that's, that team I know well. Jason's one of my best friends, and then some of the team that came from HereFish helped build that too. For me, that's the one that's going to be ensure that we have the same experience when we're talking to candidates, and we have the same experience when we're talking to potential clients. That's where I think the real rubber will meet the road. It's that asphalt level of using automation. Above and beyond that, when we get into the search and match, and I know there's some stuff there that I don't want to throw shade at Bullhorn. They've done this for a really long time, and there's been some promises not kept. I think we're TBD on some of that stuff. I have full faith. Jason and Matt, what they're building, I have full faith in they'll get it out there. I think we're in a different era now where AI helps facilitate the building of this stuff, like helps build itself in some capacities. Um, it's going to go down to adoption, and I think that's really they can deliver the tools and they can sell the tools. We know Bullhorn's really efficient at that. Will the customers adopt it, and will customers be okay handing the keys over to a bot to do some stuff that frankly I don't know if we have the answer yet. Having worked with a ton of recruiters, I can tell you that they want a little bit more control, specifically when it goes to outbound communications. So I think that's where the lens that I look through this from. It's like I want to know what's going out, when it's going out, or what's happening. So I think if we can nail that as an industry, as software providers and builders, if we can nail that to show like here's the reasoning behind what we did and make it easy to find, I think we'll see adoption benefit from that. Otherwise, I don't know where we go from there. So
Yeah. I have a bit of a different opinion, not so much on the tech side, which again, to your point, I think it does some things really well right now that are compelling that I'm interested in, and it will continue to iterate on itself and build and build and build. And it's just the iteration cycle for product development is getting faster and faster now because of AI as well. So it's kind of a self-correcting engine here. But I think what's interesting now is that AI there's two things going on. One, the question of do I or don't I leverage this technology, that question doesn't exist anymore. Which exists for every other technology like automation. Do I or don't I use it, right? The reality is do I want to be in control or not in control? And because this stuff is so ubiquitous and so accessible that recruiters are just using it anyway. So it's not a matter of like opting in and opting out. It's a matter of like, do I want it to happen in my sandbox, in my playground, or am I okay with like my people making their own informed decisions and frankly giving my data to other sources whether I like it or not? That's what's happening. So recruiters will have Bullhorn up on one screen, ChatGPT up on the other, and back and forth between the two.
Sure.
Do that independently, right? So that it's, I think, getting past that, like you're not opting in and opting out. That's not a question anymore. And then two, there's a fundamental change now in terms of the implementation and adoption of this technology is going to be different than anything we've seen in the past, where it's been in evaluate the technology, select, implement, use, adopt. Like that, this is no longer a linear process. This is going to be a complete redesign of how you operate as a business, which doesn't really come with the purchase of other technologies. It's not meant to replace people, but you think about like, you could go as far as to adjusting people's comp plans here for the introduction of AI into what they're doing. So like, it's going to change how you sell. It's going to change how you recruit, how you service customers. And it's really requires this kind of top-down existential questioning that doesn't exist with other products. Like, I don't just buy a product, throw it in there, and like it works or it doesn't. This is like, you're redefining what it is to be a recruitment firm. And so it really is going to be interesting to see how this goes over the next couple months. And we're trying to position ourselves internally here as people that can help go on that journey with you, because we've been a very AI forward shop since our inception. Luckily enough, it was a matter of coincidence, but launching in 2025, ChatGPT was already humming along by then. We're probably a year ahead of schedule based on us just saying, you know what, we're an AI first shop and it's worked. So also a lot easier. We can just build your processes around it. So it's not, I'm being a bit of a hypocrite here, but it's going to be really interesting to see what the next 6, 12, 18 months look like. Technology.
Yeah, I was going to say, and it feels like too, if you look at kind of the early AI adopters, some of the early products that were out there, you would have one or two, then you started to get a mass of them, right? There would be a group, but it feels like, they took what I would say would probably like 5 or 6 of the most common ones as we sit here today talking, and we're like, hey, we're putting this in a package, it's amplifying, we're going to go with it. We're going to get our customers at least talking about it, thinking about it, hopefully buying it and adopting it. But through all that we just said, though, like if you think about it, we're we're middle of June here, right? We get to middle of December. What is like? How do you measure what looks good, right? If they've adopted Amplify,
Yeah.
you got to look at it somehow and say, hey, either good investment, like we're running with it, like so. I mean, how do you measure that? How do you look at impact and try to identify that?
I think you can a couple things there. One, and this is where I've challenged some of the marketing approach separately. I think one of the issues that's happening now is there's so much going on with AI, whether it's not just Bullhorn. Think about every marketplace partner, it feels like to a degree is leveraging AI in some way of their package. It's almost I'm being overwhelmed by it. And I know I want to go forward with AI in some capacity, but I have no idea where to start. And that is kind of this like chicken or egg scenario. And it's like, I want to buy, but show me where to start. What do I do first? And it's like, well, it does everything. And it's like, well, that's not the answer to my question. I think here is having a really clear strategy. You can say, I'm going to attack one area of my process. I think Travis said it earlier when it came automation. It's very similar to that in that regard, in the sense of I want to make a goal of reaching everybody that applies to a job on my end. I want them to be screened. You submit a resume with me, I'm going to take a look at it. And I think starting smaller, it's a lot easier to measure the impact of that because you can test it against what you're doing on the old way versus the new way versus a big bang approach where it's really hard and things kind of get made into this stew where like I don't even know where the ingredients are anymore. It's just I think I'm really taking that like 1% better every day mentality instead of trying to change everything fundamentally overnight and improve is the way to attack this. It's eating the elephant, right? It's the one bite at a time type thing. And it might seem drawn out, but the firms that are super far ahead that I've spoken to are the ones that have been the most methodical and slow rolling in how they're actually laying this out internally for their teams.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off that quick and I'll let Travis talk. But yeah, I figured we were going to all say the same micro thing. So I'll say the macro thing of like, and you guys have said it through this, is like the adoption at the C-suite to building their company like this going into the future, I feel is like where it starts because you get into this messed up salad because, you know, person in marketing wants this AI bot, person in operations wants this, and like there's no cohesiveness if the group at the top isn't pushing for an AI first organization. And like, I know we hear it, I'm sure Brendan does too in his line, but like, there's this idea that like, well, like our EBITDA is not where we want it. So like, we'll go towards it in 2027. And I'm like, dude, 2027? Like, good luck. Like, see you on the other side, guy. But like, it has to start at the top, I believe. So sorry to interject there, but
that was back when I was running services for Bullhorn. I mean, this probably wasn't the most well received rah speech, but when we would talk to customers who had just bought Bullhorn and were going to adopt, I would tell them point blank, like, we're kind of going to go Spanish conquistador style and burn the boats here. Like, we live here now. Like, there's no going back, right? And you need that mentality of like, we are willing to, because if you have an exit clause, you will always find a way to revert back to what you know.
Yeah.
Yep. You want to be uncomfortable. You have to work through that uncomfortability a little times because that's when the actual breakthrough happens. So I need to get probably a more or a less dated reference than burning the boats, but something that has the same shot.
Agree to disagree. I like that one.
I like that one too. I think it's good. I like to use kill your darlings, and I think that's very similar. It's like, oh, hey, we had this thing that really worked great for us for the past 20 years. Sorry, 20 years, and then I don't know if it's going to work anymore, but we'll still try to do it. And we'll try to do it with AI now. It's like, okay, that's not the approach. Like you have to like reinvent how you're thinking about this. I've had this conversation with Boostie customers and just friends in the space, and you know, it's like, is our 20 to 50 user recruiting firm in 6 months, is it still 20 to 50 users? Is it 50 users at that point? Or is it 20 users that's doing the work of 50 users? Or is it 50 users that's doing the work of 200 users? Like, that's the question. We have no clue. I think that there's been headwinds in the space for 3 years, you know, and I think that kind of has everybody feeling pretty down. but I'm not one that says, "Oh, AI is going to fix it all." I don't think it's going to fix it all. I don't think it's going to necessarily um, do. It's not going to make work flood a company that's using AI for outbound client communications, for example. But a recruiter that's got like a little sidekick and is doing some of these rote tasks that they typically either aren't doing or don't like doing, now you have it just done. It's just going to happen. It's going to be a little bit more intelligent how it's getting solved. Um, I don't know. The adoption curve is pretty high. I don't disagree with that. I think when you look at a recruiter's desk, it's one screen's GPT or Claude, and the other screen's Bullhorn, and they're copying and pasting job descriptions and moving them over and email communications to customers and to candidates. If you can bake that into your flow and not have to do that copy paste thing, even better. It just makes it more efficient. I don't know. It's 6 months from now. I don't like talking in like the future like that, but I would hope to see we've matured as a space where it's like, oh, at least we're starting to the automation AI bucket is starting to fill up more than it has in the past.
But even to the end, you still want to be in a position where every recruitment agency in any sector, whether it's exec search down to light industrial, has to be tired of the age-old, when the economy is good, I hire people. When the economy is bad, I fire people.
Yes.
And so goes the wheel. And if things like snap back again, and I hope they do, and we're trending in that direction, and like this is a have we learned nothing kind of moment in time for us. And I think AI is actually, even if it doesn't work as much as you want it to take over all of those discrete functions, like you said, Travis, to say, I have 50 people that can do the work of 100, even if it is getting you to 25 additional people, that is 25 people that you're not going to have to performance manage out or pay severance to the next time the economy tanks. So this is an awesome opportunity to raise the floor for these firms. Maybe it's not as high as they want to get to originally, but we have to break this wheel of just like what recruitment has been for the last 20 years of hire and fire. That's why I think why wouldn't you embrace this? Right.
Yeah, especially from our side, we focus on Salesforce, right? And then you got a whole nother level here, right? Because you see everywhere, you got the little robot, Agent Force, right?
Yeah.
And so, I know with Bullhorn Recruitment Cloud, Amplified, there's an aspect of that goes into that. There's some agents built. But, even with that, like the pricing, they're still trying to figure that out, as an organization. So not like actual Salesforce, right? So you look at whether it's $2 an interaction, whether it's consumption based, like what does that look like? And you start looking at scale. If you're a small company trying to get going, can you afford it? Or if you're a large company and you have hundreds of thousands of applicants a day and they interact with an AI agent on your website, did you just, throw all your profits away for the day? Or so there's so many things going on here. So I think, I think it's exciting times. I think it's, there's definitely a lot to get figured out. But I always equate it back to, I think even Jared interviewed me. People ask me, like, tell me about yourself. Like, I'm a builder. I like to build things. Like, I like to get my hands dirty. I like to, if I can build a physical structure and see it done at the end, like, I get that. And I feel like that's the same thing with this. You got to get your hands dirty. You're going to make a mistake here or there. That's fine. But you got to be willing to go out and try it and figure out. I think we talked about some of the table stake stuff in the beginning, right? Just pick a small target, right? Like, I'm going to respond to everybody that applies. That's a easy one to take away from this and say, step one, like this is what I'm going to do. I think there's a lot of ways to do that. So, as I kind of, we're at time here, so I want to wrap up, but I think, as we look at Amplify, as we look at kind of how each one of our organizations, like I said, we complement each other. I think we can help in a different way. So I kind of like to just go back through one more time, kind of some final advice and just anything you like to say about, if somebody's looking through Amplify or whether it's another technology out there, how you can help and assist them. So Travis, let's start with you.
Yeah, and I think we look at this from like a marketing through a marketing lens first. It's like how do we like ensure those marketing experiences are consistent for applicants coming through, and then at the end of the day, like is our marketing qualified leads helping recruiting make those more qualified? So that's like that little interaction, that handshake between there, and then above and beyond that, it's like all those little things we've talked about, like how are we automating off of those interactions, like if that job's closed, so let's send the emails to all the people who applied, and we can use AI to write the email, like write in Herefish to do that. It's like those little kind of use cases to me what is where I think we just have like a line of sight in that not many people have. Like we look at top of funnel marketing stuff, and then we go into Herefish. Those are two complementary things. Obviously, we've built both of them, so it makes it easy for us to kind of understand where that connective tissue exists and how to make it work really, really well.
Yeah. I would say from my end, I think people are being overly dismissive of AI and what it can do for them. And I want them to give it a chance, give AI a chance a bit, in the sense that, I'll have all the patience in the world for bringing in a wet behind the ears college grad and teach them how to be a recruiter, even if they ask a million dumb questions. That's okay. But the AI gives me a wrong answer one time, and I'm like, this idiot doesn't know what it's talking about.
Yes.
Technology. It's like, go ask that same question to the guy you just hired, the person you just hired over here, and see what they say. And it's just we can't be hypocrites in terms of being acceptable of like the new hire over here, but not acceptable of the digital new hire either. And it learns at an insane pace. It will pick up what you're putting down, but you need to break through those like initial barriers that come up with it, because it's learning, right? And my favorite prompt I tell people all the time is like, have you asked it just do better? When you get an answer, just say do better.
Yeah.
See how many times it actually get better, like quickly,
More.
like right? More, just do better. No, wrong, do more. And it's incredibly responsive to that. So I think just making sure people are pushing through those first couple interactions is really, really key.
Yep. Jared.
Yeah, I mean, as the co-host of this podcast and having Travis and Brendan on, along with what PARQA does, I just think that like build a team around you to go on the journey with you, because like Travis and Brendan have been around the block. They've seen the evolution. They've been through it, and like even if PARQA wasn't a consulting firm, like I have a personal trainer, like I have a executive coach. I like you go farther faster with people around you, and like that's one of the things that I think this industry will continue to evolve on, but it has been a struggle in the past, is just like keeping it in-house, keeping it to themselves. Like reach out to Brendan, Travis, me, Travis Webb, like we're all in this together. And I can tell you firsthand, like Brendan left to start Broad Madison because he knew this was a problem and he wanted to help. Travis started Boostie after Herefish because he saw a need, but brought on Bullhorn Advisory over the last few months because he wants to help. Like we want to help. Yeah, it's our business, but I mean, I think that you can go a lot farther faster by bringing, some people like Brendan and Travis around you and PARQA. So that'd be my recommendation.
Well, and I want to add there, and the reason I'm at PARQA is because I was on the other side of the fence for 20 years, and I used to beg marketing or corporate for items and things that seem to be relatively easy, coming from a semi-technical background and helping build a ATS at one point, right? So, I will say this: just because they're bigger doesn't mean they're doing things any different than you are. Sometimes they're actually a lot slower and really struggle to adapt. So that's where I think as we look at kind of the future of what our industry looks like with technology, man, small and nimble and willing to embrace some of this stuff, you can really gain a competitive advantage. Yeah. And, I would say the playing field's almost as level as it's ever been, right? So you can, as a small firm, you can adopt AI, you can set up these tools, you don't have to go hire 100 people, and you can be right out there running with the big guys and getting things done. So I think that's one of the really cool advantages. And I think even with technology, you're going to continue to see it evolve, where you're going to have systems that are specific to verticals and, it's going to continue to change, which is exciting because our industry was long overdue for it, and now it's just hit us like a brick and just coming at us fast and furious. But with that, guys, I just want to say thank you. I appreciate you guys joining us today. I know talking with Jared, we really appreciate our partnerships with both of you. I think there's a lot of opportunities for anybody watching this. If you have questions, as Jared mentioned, reach out to one of us. We're always here to talk. We're always here to help. We're all looking to move the industry forward in the right way. So thank you again for joining us today, and we appreciate you being with us.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.